Gifts that matter have no weight. Gifts that matter have no weight. Moonlight on fresh fallen snow, frost delicately etched on a window pane, crackling fireside, bright because who is there? Memories of Christmas past, long separated. Gifts, says Richard Gilbert, gifts that matter have no weight. Obviously, this is a man who has never encountered a fruitcake, which do have weight and matter to me. Now, I love fruitcake, or at least the kind I make, and I give them as gifts. Those of you who have read my weblog, and if you haven't, you really should, those of you who have read know that I have a semi-secret recipe that requires the absence of alcohol and the presence of fruit that actually comes from nature, instead of those strange objects you can only get this time of year. And this obsession with fruitcake is actually a family tradition. Legend has it that my mom one year, when I was about the age of my youngest son, who ran outside without a coat this morning, that my mom once made fruitcakes for everyone on her Christmas list, only to have them eaten by the family dog while they were cooling on the counter. The fruitcakes were gone, and the dog, who was in no way injured in the process of the theft, has also been gone for some 30 years. But we still remember them together in their sad encounter. So some gifts do, in fact, have weight, at least in the literal and indisputable sense. But even as I say this, I remember another apparently indisputable fact. Namely, that many people, it seems, don't like fruitcake. I was going to ask for hands, but I really don't want to know. Some people don't like fruitcake, and yet they don't mind getting them as gifts during the holidays. Why is that? Why do people accept, quite happily, in fact, something that they have no plans for eating? They may joke about it, of course. There's the classic doorstop joke. And you might say that it is mere politeness. But I think something else is going on. That fruitcake, you see, points to something more important. Something greater than a collection of fruit and nuts bound inexorably together by an amalgam of flour, butter, and sugar, although that sounds pretty good to me. It represents the care of the person who made it. In Gilbert's words, the gift givers whom we love, the reunion of those long separated. Gift giving, at least those gifts that matter, has less to do with the thing that is given and more to do with the sentiment, the acknowledgement of our connection, our unity, our love and respect during this holy time, and hopefully for all time. Now, up to this point, it may sound rather fuzzy, rather sentimental, this talk today. However, I also think that fruitcake points to another thing, another kind of love and connection that Gilbert doesn't really get into. And I have to say, I'm not making any great claims for my fruitcake in this case, because it's a process of giving and receiving that we all participate in. The fact is, we don't start giving things like that, like fruitcake and like Christmas cookies or Christmas ties or whatever else we think of in this way, until we reach a specific time of year. I start baking. Allison can tell you, I don't bake. Well, I only bake during the season of Advent. I bake my first fruitcakes around the first Sunday, and I'm done eating them by 12th night, and then I don't have any more until it comes back around. And most people do something similar with something. It's an Advent practice, a high-calorie spiritual discipline, baking these things, because they help us to patiently wait with excitement and interest They help us to pass the time between the Sunday after Thanksgiving and the great arrival, whatever that may mean to you, the great arrival of Christmas Day. And regardless of our various theologies, our rituals during this time are performed in anticipation of a spiritual and, for many of us, a divine connection. This Advent is a time for waiting. It is a time characterized not so much by the story of Jesus, because that story hasn't started, but by the stories of others, of good people who labored in the dark times, who fought the good fight without expectation of immediate success, who laid the groundwork for something more. Not just for a baby in a manger, but for something better, for a better world. And we know people like that today, don't we? We know prophets, large and small, climbing uphill, beating back the forces of racism and sexism and classism and any number of other isms that we could discuss today. They're in the news a lot these days, actually, making noise, marching in the streets, meeting in church halls and union halls, but usually pretty far away from the halls of power. Today's main character, the one who really gets this Advent journey going, was one of those people. An agitator, a protester, a resistor of the first order. Now, there's no record of whether or not John the Baptist ever gave up his diet of locusts and honey, or whether he ever had a fruitcake. But he probably wouldn't have liked it, but he's a good man, so he would regift. But what is important is that he knew what was important in gifting, didn't he? We think of him as a messenger, the one who is more powerful than I is coming after me, he says, and I am not worthy to stoop down and untie the thong of his sandals. But he's more than that. He is John the Baptizer. He wasn't a Baptist, I think you all know that. It was John the Baptizer. He was Jewish. And he was doing the good work before there was ever a movement associated with Jesus. He's doing the good work of giving people a gift, the ritual of belonging, giving them the gift of community, helping his congregation to assert its presence in the midst of the struggle against oppression, the struggle against death, the struggle against indifference. No wonder he comes off as being a grump a lot of the time. You would too. That's a lot of responsibility. It's a lot of stress bringing people together for an endeavor that is more risky and more challenging then than it is today to get up and make your way to church. We had pretty radical beginnings, actually, going back to John, which some people still honor and participate in. John waited and worked. He baptized and he preached and he taught until one day the authorities caught up with him and he was executed. But that gift, the gifts that he gave, and in some sense he has reached across time to give that gift to this congregation, the gift of his strength and his example. The gifts that he has given have no weight, while also being the weightiest gifts, the most important ones that we see. So how do we practice our own waiting? How do we while away the days in anticipation of what is to come? We too need to give the gifts that matter. From the lowliest fruitcake and the ukulele song and readings and parts in the pageant to great acts of courage. from helping a friend in need or spending time with our loved ones to marching in one of the protests you see and hear about on the news, to speaking out our own beliefs, sometimes to those same people we are reuniting with during the holidays. Always working not just toward any community, but toward a great one, a peaceful one, a just one that will be a beacon of hope and light to others in this time of anticipation, in this time of waiting.